Welcome back to Cuff'em and Quote'em. In today's video, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about character development and character creation in your stories. Something that I've noticed in my reviews, a lot of people point out that my characters are really realistic, that they can relate to them very well, they're well-rounded and well-developed. And so I just kind of want to take a minute talking about character development in general and how I develop my characters and what works for me, and maybe it'll work for you too. So the first thing you have to think about when you're creating your characters is what makes humans human, right? We are very different from each other, and those differences can be amazing, and we're also very similar to each other, and sometimes I think the similarities get overlooked. One of the things that makes people people is that we are flawed creatures. We make a lot of really dumb decisions and bad ideas and a lot of mistakes in our life. Something I tried really hard to do with my books was highlight the flawed nature of people. Rose, my main character, a lot of people say that she's super relatable and they love reading about her because they get her. I mean, she has a magic that she can transfer and walk through shadows, not something realistic. So how is it that they are relating to Rose? And I think it's because she's a flawed, broken human being who's trying really hard to recover from her past. That's something that a lot of people can relate to. Even if you don't have a broken past, or if you don't have something you're trying to recover from, just being in your 20s and trying to figure out who you are as a person, and you're realizing that all of your childhood friends, their personalities have changed and you're not friends with them anymore, and you're trying to figure out who it is that you want to be friends with and who it is that you want to associate with and what is it that you stand for as a person. I mean, your 20s is a challenging time. Rose, she struggles with trusting people. She's extremely selfish. She's a lot bullheaded and stubborn. So when you're writing your characters, you want to give them flaws that normal people have, right? Everybody's a little bit selfish and stubborn and bullheaded, and some people have a really hard time trusting. That's something that everybody can relate to some aspect of. So give your characters those flaws that you see in every people, flaws that you see in yourself. I mean, Rose is filled with my own flaws, things that I wish I didn't do or did less of or did when I was younger. Give them those characteristics, and give them the characteristics that aren't plot specific. Like, it's not plot specific that Rose is incapable of trusting. It makes her life very difficult, actually. I mean, if Rose was able to trust people, shit would have gone through much faster in the book, because it just would have. Great to find out. But give them characteristics that hamper the plot and make things more difficult, because nobody in real life is able to look at their future with 2020 hindsight, so they don't have the luxury of making the best choice and the best decision in every situation. The only thing you can do is what you think is the right decision given what you know about the circumstance. So if you're writing characters that are perfect, that don't have flaws, that don't do things that make you go, that's annoying, like if your characters don't make you have that reaction, I think you're going to struggle with making them relatable, because everybody has, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you think right now, you can think of a friend that does a thing that you're just like, it would make your life so much easier if you just didn't do the thing. Your characters need to have that same sort of reaction with your readers. They need to make bad decisions for the wrong reasons in situations sometimes, because that's what people do. They need to have these flaws so that they can learn to overcome them and grow, or else you have no character growth. If your character doesn't ever overcome aspects of her personality or their personality, then you're never going to have that growth, and they're going to fall flat with your readers. I mean, I do a thing. I am very blunt with people when I'm angry with them, and that has been brought to my attention several times by supervisors. I'm trying really hard to not do that, and I'm trying to grow as a person and be less blazingly blunt when I'm angry. I am not always successful, but I'm trying. That is character growth. It's personality growth. It's if your characters don't have a flaw that they can be made aware of at some point in your book and then overcome that, they're going to not be as realistic, they're going to fall flat, and they're not going to be real, because everybody needs to grow, and the way you grow is overcoming your faults. So give them faults, give them bad attributes that they can learn to work around or adapt or grow from. Also give them strong attributes. Make them stoic. Make them, I mean, Rose has a very challenging past that she is desperately trying to put behind her. That has made her very strong in stressful and hard situations. She is very able to distance herself from what needs to be done. She doesn't like it about herself, but she's the person where when you need to have something done and it's something that's hard, Rose is the person who can do it for you. She might not like herself afterwards, but she can do it. So that's a strong aspect of her personality, is she has a very strong core to do what needs to be done. So when you're writing your characters, look at yourself and look at what characters do you have that you think are good, that are the strong characteristics that are what makes you unique, and also look at your flaws and give your characters those attributes. Look at people around. I mean, look at your friend group, look at your other characters that you've read in your other books. What makes them good characters, and pick out aspects of their characters to give to different people in your book. Give them different ones. Like there's another character in my book, Captain Selah, who she's very stoic. She's very cold and kind of a hard ass. She's one of those characters where you don't really want to mess with her because you're not sure what she'd do to you if you do. That's Captain Selah. That's not at all what Rose is. But at the same time, if Captain Selah, once Rose starts to interact with her and she starts to gain that friendship and she starts to learn that she can trust this woman, Captain Selah becomes a very warm and nurturing person to Rose and kind of tucks her under her wing a little bit. So you need to be able to give your characters those layers, that because everybody's layered. Everybody's got onion layers. Name that movie. But you got to be able to build upon those layers. Captain Selah is a very stoic, hard woman who has worked very hard to get where she is. But if she can learn that you're worth her time, she is a very nurturing and soft woman who can become a very great mentor to Rose. Those are different layers to that character. I think if you can build in those aspects of layered, sometimes contradicting personality traits with your flaws and your strengths and what you want and what you need, those two things can contradict each other a lot. Rose wants to disappear into history and not be known. She wants to have her name forgotten by everybody who knows her, and she just wants to disappear. She needs a family and friendship, and she needs to feel important, but she's not willing to accept that need. So the want and the need contradict within herself, and that causes a lot of conflict in her, which creates some very erratic and contradicting behavior. Like she always is wanting to disappear. Once she gets to the castle, she wants to disappear. She does not want to be here any more than she needs to, but she continues to stay, and she's not quite sure why for a long time, because she hasn't acknowledged the need that she has. So when you're writing characters and once you've established their flaws and their strengths, you need to establish their motivations. What motivates their behavior, and why do they contradict it sometimes? Give them a motivation for everything they do, because we have motivations for everything we do, whether it's self-guided motivation, whether it's selfish, whether it's for a third party, whether it's because we want to please whatever group we're in. We always have motivations for everything that we do. So when you're building your characters and you've figured out what their flaws are, figured out what their strengths are, figured out how they interact, you've given your character a motivation and a drive for their actions, then you need to make sure that they can grow from that. Another thing you need to look at, which isn't quite as important, but I would not forget it either, is their mannerisms. Being a cop, I have gotten very good at reading people's body language. We are speaking as a race. Humans speak 100% of the time. A lot of it is with their body language. The deaf community is a great example of a community that has just highlighted their ability to read people's body language. So much of ASL is in the facial expression that's tied to whatever word they're saying with their hands. So much of ASL is their facial expression. You can phrase a question out of a statement simply by the way you raise your eyebrows. So much is said with body language. You can't forget it. I would not say it's as important as giving people good motivation and flaws and character development. But I wouldn't forget about it. When you have characters that are speaking to each other, what are they doing with their hands? How are they standing? How are they actually giving the words? Because if you can write amazing dialogue all day long, but if it's just delivered dialogue with nothing else, it's going to fall a little flat, because at some point the reader is going to forget that it's Rose that is speaking, because it's just more dialogue after dialogue. So like, give them the mannerisms that will say what you wish. I mean, okay, if you've watched The Witcher is a great example of what you can do with some body language and a single word or a single sigh. Give them that tone through their body language. Here's a good example in my book. This is something I took from me, one of my mannerisms. Because I'm very blunt with people when I'm angry, I've tried very hard to control my word response. That has translated into me clucking my tongue. When I'm super frustrated with somebody and I don't know what to say and have it be nice, I cluck my tongue. That is translated into a habit that Rose does. And so you'll be reading sections where Rose will really want to respond to something, but she's trying not to get her ass kicked, and so she'll cluck her tongue. And I write in there, Rose clucked her tongue, glared, and walked away, right? Like something like that. You can put across so much of the vibe and the energy and the mood of a scene by mannerisms that can replace words. If that's something you want to play around with, I heavily suggest you do it, because so much of, like, I mean, a cop can tell if you're going to fight simply by what you're doing with your hands and your legs. It has nothing to do with what you're saying, with what your face looks like. We watch your hands and your feet, and the second we see the signs that we know to watch for, we know fight's on and it's going to be a brawl. It has nothing to do with what you're saying. It has everything to do with your body language. So if you can find a way to write in fragments of body language and mannerisms that can relay a ton of dialogue as well, it'll make your characters more realistic. It'll give them that depth of behavior that humans have, because we're always responding to body language, whether or not you're aware of it. I suggest if you want to get better at watching body language, I suggest you people watch. Go to your favorite people watch locations. I have a couple. Walmart's a great one. But even just like the park, somewhere where there's a lot of people, and just watch them. Watch what they're doing and how they're doing it with their bodies. How are they standing? Do they speak with their hands a whole lot? Do they stand really still? Because you can write those mannerisms into different characters to give them further characterization and to give them further personality. I think if you can get down those aspects, you can have a fantastically developed character that everybody's going to be able to relate to. What we want to do when we create strong, relatable characters is give them flaws and give them strong, positive attributes. Give them a healthy mix of both. You want to create motivation for their behaviors. Why do they do what they do, and how do those motivations contradict with others? Because they do. You want to give them layered behavior and work in different body language and body behaviors and attributes for nonverbal communications, because that is just as important as verbal communications. And then when you're all done, you're going to wrap that up into a happy little novel that's going to get published and your readers are going to adore. That's the hope, anyway. So comment down below what you think. What works for you when you're writing your characters? What do you do? What kind of attributes do you add to your characters? When you're reading your books, which ones do you love, and why did you love them? What made their character stand out to you? Let's start a discussion down in the comments below about character development. What works for you? What doesn't? What do you like? What don't you like? Do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? I mean, I'm a new author. I'm all up for advice. So if something I said sounds weird, tell me, and let's start that conversation. But thanks for joining. Until next time, stay safe, be nice to each other, and if it's wet and sticky, please don't touch it.